Second one. All right, here's a good one. Creatine.
Underrated.
Yeah, I agree with it. 100% underrated.
It's probably the most effective supplement on the market for gaining strength and size, and it has other health benefits too. I believe it acts as an antioxidant in the brain.
Yeah, cognitive benefits.
It does all sorts of stuff. And you'll hear a lot of people be like, "Oh, I don't want creatine." Like, why don't you want creatine?
Why?
The only thing I hear frequently is people like, "Oh, it makes me bloated." And I always go back to like, how much are you taking and what kind?
Yep.
Because you only need 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, ideally Creapure, which is super pure, and any more than that.
Yeah, the micronized.
Well, and so specifically Creapure, going back to like formulating days, if you take a generic raw powder creatine monohydrate and put it next to a Creapure creatine, the raw powder.
Yeah, big difference.
Even just a visual difference without even looking at it is so different. But then if you smell a generic creatine monohydrate, it almost has like an ammonia smell. It just it smells weird. The mesh is a lot. There's like the particle size is a lot bigger. The Creapure is like a pure crystalline white sand.
Yep.
No smell, very odorless, like no taste. So yeah, ideally look for a Creapure if you can. But yeah, creatine monohydrate above any other form. But again, I feel like creatine, because it's been out for so long, it's not sexy anymore. It's not new. People often be like, oh, it's creatine, whatever. But that should be the number one ingredient you take if you're looking to improve your performance in any way.
Yep. And it always blows my mind when people are interested in supplements, meaning they are actively trying to find supplements that will help their performance, build muscle, gain strength, whatever, but yet do not take creatine. Like, okay, so the supplement that has the most research behind it to show its validity, you're not taking, but you're taking a bunch of other things that has considerably less evidence to work. That doesn't make sense to me.
They'll take the newest flavor of the month supplement, Turkestrone, all that nonsense, and be like, oh, I'm going to just take.
But they're not on creatine.
Yeah, they're not on creatine. So yeah,
and I think a lot of it too is maybe people overrate it in their head, and then they've tried it and they try it for a month and they're like, oh, I'm not, I don't feel like I've got a lot stronger. I mean, I've even had people tell me that they took creatine and they got weaker. I'm like, okay, so you do realize there's absolutely no possible way it was from the creatine, right?
Right. Well, and so the whole thing behind creatine responders, how much someone responds to it, how much of a difference they notice, is based on how much creatine they store normally. So let's say you can store between 0 to 100, we'll just say grams, it's not grams of creatine. If you're already at the 90 range, adding in creatine supplementation may bump you up a little bit, but not a lot. But let's say you're down at like the 20 or 30 range and you get bumped up to 90. Now you have triple the amount of creatine. You're going to notice differences. So it depends on how much creatine you normally naturally store or the creatine levels you naturally have, how much of a response you're going to feel.
Exactly.
So that's like when creatine first came out, there was this whole thing about non-responders. And it was based on like they already had naturally high creatine levels. So they're not going to get that big boost. But even with that said, with how cheap and effective creatine is, it's worth taking no matter what.
Yeah, well, that's why I always tell people it's worth taking no matter what, because it's cheap and there's a lot of research that shows it. For most people, it's going to offer a benefit. Just trust it's going to work and take it.
Right. But I definitely agree with you. It's not going to give you steroid-like gains, which is how it was promoted at first when creatine monohydrate first came out. Basically, like, oh, it's going to increase your bench by 35 pounds, do all this. No, it's not going to be that drastic, but it will help you.
Yep. So I think if you go into it thinking you're going to, act like or feel like you're on steroids, then you will be disappointed.
Right.